Hi, in this video we take a look at tools located in jewelry panel, and we start with prongs. But first I want to tell you that I already have made 2 videos about prongs, and I do not want to make a third one to show the same exact thing. That's why in this video I will show something new, but if you're interested in more detailed demonstration of prongs tool, there will be 2 links to the previous demonstrations in the description of this video. In the past versions of JewelCraft, prongs tool just imported already existing models of prongs from blend file, and the issue with this implementation was manual editing. For example, if you need more than 2 prongs around the gem, or prong intersection percent should be not 30 but 15%, you had to manually edit prongs model yourself. Now prongs tool generates the model, which allows us to specify the parameters for creating model we need at the moment. The tool has automated preset system to create prongs for different gems depending on gem cut and size. Prongs tool was specifically created for round gemstones, but its flexibility allows to create prongs for majority of symmetrical gems with no problem. But how it handles gem with more complicated shape, like heart or pear? And that is what I'm going to demonstrate. We can create prongs for pear cut in one go because of its asymmetrical shape. That's why we do it in 3 steps. Step 1. Create 2 prongs using automated presets. Call operator redo with F6, change size if you need, and disable automated presets, otherwise all user edits will reset next time you use the tool. Step 2. Create prongs again. They are created in the same location with the first prongs. Call operator redo and change position and intersection settings. You may notice that intersection setting has locked range between 0 and 100%, but you can use keyboard to type in any percent number you want. And last step. Use the tool one more time, disable symmetry, double prongs number, and set position and intersection to 0. That way it is possible to create prongs for gems with shape of any complexity. You may say that all of this should happen automatically, and yes, I could create more settings for all different gems, like I do it with cutters. But usually this type of gemstones use prongs or sockets that are modeled specifically to match design of the product, which is beyond the scope of this tool. But it falls with the scope of another instrument, Asset Manager. But I will talk about this in the next video. Cutter tool. Here situation is identical to prongs tool. In previous version of JewelCraft there were existing cutter models, which were imported from the blend file. Each gem had 2 cutter models, one with hole and another with seed. And that is the reason why there were 2 buttons for creating cutters. Now cutters same as prongs are generated, and there is specific set of properties for every gem. I won't show how it works with every gem, I just say that I tried to make it as flexible as I could. If you want to see how it works with every gem, link to that video in the description. Definitely go watch it if you have not seen it yet. By default for prongs and cutters I assigned neutral white colors, but if you want to give them more vivid colors, you surely can do that in the add-on settings. By the way, these color settings will not affect materials that already exist in the scene. We'll skip Make Dupliface tool because the only noticeable change from the previous version is that Dupliface geometry now a triangle and not a square. Scatter along curve. To use it, first select the stone and then the curve, and use the tool. As a result, we see how 10 copies of the stone evenly distributed along the curve. We can call operator redo to adjust the scattering. We can change number of gemstones and tweak transformations such as orientation relative to the curve, rotation along gem's own axis, and offset from curve. We also can adjust gem's distribution. The setting has only two parameters, start and end of distribution, in percents. If we set these settings to 25 and 75% respectively, we will limit distribution to the half of the curve. By selecting both parameters, we can move distribution zone in desired direction. It is possible to set negative percent value to move distribution zone beyond curve's start point, but that makes sense only if curve is closed. By default, the stones distributed evenly along the entire length of the curve. We can of course specify start and end of the distribution, but we do not have direct control over the distance between the stones that way. For this we have an option, absolute offset. When you activate it, the distance between the stones is controlled by the spacing property, and scatter end value does not affect the distribution anymore, only scatter start. Distribution does not use modifiers or duplicates. Instead, we use follow path constraint, which is assigned to each stone, its position on the curve controlled by offset property. By editing this property, we control the position of each stone or multiple stones at the same time by editing property with Alt key pressed. If you need to redistribute the stones, then select them and use Redistribute tool with the arrows icon next to the Scatter tool. It will have the same set of properties as Scatter tool, for the exception of Number property. Same as with duplicates or modifiers, stones scattered with constraints copy deformations of the curve. But there is one thing. Even if we used absolute offset for distribution, position of the stones will be affected by curve's length. In other words, if we increase the length of the curve, distance between the stones will also increase. In that case, the Redistribute tool will be most useful. Here is a quick hack for you on how to increase the number of stones using Redistribute. Use the Duplicate tool. Copy the stones and press Escape, intentionally creating duplicates. Then select all the stones and use Redistribute. Or you can remove all the stones and redistribute them with Scatter tool. But before this, do not forget to remove constraint from the remaining stone. Functionality for scattering stones of different sizes has not been implemented yet, but it will in future releases. And we ran out of tools in Jeweling panel. Thank you for your attention. Download link for the add-on is in the description. Use JewelCraft to report bugs and suggest improvements.